Hello and welcome. This is the 29th edition of the Wise Mind Fireside Chats, the Wi-Fi chats. And we've got some of our normal characters, Erika Nadu, Gabby Sheshlock, and we're joined once again by Marcella Crank. So welcome to you all. And we were having a conversation before we hit the record button about it being the start of the new calendar year. We've got the whole year ahead of us. We've got the rest of our lives ahead of us, which brought up the opening lyric to the Louis Armstrong song, We Have All the Time in the World. Time enough for life to unfold all the precious things, to see what love has in store, and we have all the love in the world. How true is that for you?
Um, um, all the time in the world. Like, what does that mean? We know we don't. We don't have all the time in the world. In fact, we don't know how much time we have. So, um, I think it's real important for us to first get clear on the fact that it's a fact that we don't know just how much time we have. So, thinking of that, how important is your time, and what are you doing with it? So I'm stuck on the first sentence of the lyrics. Like I can't even get past that at this point.
Well, I guess you could say that we have all the time in our world, in our little world, for the period of time we are here. And are we living that time intentionally? Are we living that time doing what we love to do? Or are we stuck in a rut? Are we just functioning? One of my motto is actually a saying, and it actually comes from a movie, believe it or not, but I love that. Um, Everybody has to die, but not everybody lives. And I really love that sentiment.
I was reading earlier before we came on The Wild Edge of Sorrow by Francis Teller. Sorry, Weller, Francis Weller. And there's a quote in there that just really resonated with this for me, which is I don't want to get to the end of my life having lived the length of it. I want to get to the end of my life having lived the width of it too. And I just think that, and I'm going to make this a personal one, with our I statements and things. I think I have blinkers sometimes on so many goals, so many ideas that I fail to open my vision wide enough to encompass all of those other things that are happening alongside. And that could be the things that are happening for my friends and my loved ones. It could be broader stuff that might bring me pleasure and joy. It might be opening myself to those sort of shadow elements, the bits that perhaps have lived in darkness and shame and actually need not. And if I were to acknowledge and bring them into my world and my life, would actually add both width and depth to my experience.
Yeah, when I think of the statement, we have all the time in the world, I think especially young people believe that they have all the time in the world. But as you get older and you realize that you don't have all the time in the world. So for me, and I think that Gabby really touched on it, is the the time and what are you doing with your time? Right. And so as you get older, I think, or for me, I have concentrated on, yeah, what am I doing with my time and how am I making a difference? Because that is my heart to make a difference. And we can get caught up in so many things. And Alec, you made a good point, and because I have a lot of ideas, so there used to be a time when I really wouldn't get a whole lot done because I'm like putting time here, putting time here, putting time here, putting time here. And then at the end of the day, it's like, so what did you get done? Or the end of the year, so what did you get done? Because my focus was so many different places. So it's when you look at time, time goes by so quick, you know, at least for me, it goes by so quick. And I have decided to focus on what's important for me or to me.
If we think of time as being the only real currency that we have, would you, particularly Marcella, because you raised this thought in my mind, would you spend $1,000 here, $1,000 there, just willy-nilly, as it kind of sounded, as my absolute most precious commodity, my time, my energy, my focus, what am I doing with it? What if we think of it less as days we spent or projects we created, when we look at the bank balance at the end of the year and we actually considered where did that time go as a currency, what impact would that have on how we spend it?
Yeah, and that just brought a new idea up for me, because if you see it that way, it's not only how we live the life, but when we look at the intention of living, why the intentions we have, it's not only the width, but also how deep are we going with the time? Are we just spending the time, you know, doing superficial stuff as you do? It's a little bit like buying things we don't need. So do we spend time just because, that's what everybody does, or are we actually spending time meaningfully? I think that's what I want to say with the depth of how we spend our time. Is it meaningful what we do, how we spend our time?
There's a song, and I can't think of who wrote it or sung it. I'm not even sure about the title. It's that little gap between, or the little dash between, and it's the year you were born, and then there's that little dash between that encompasses everything that we do, everybody we touch, every smile we share, every photon that happens to focus at the back of the retina, all gets condensed into this little dash, which probably, if we have the conscious thought right then at our passing moment, is never going to feel like enough. So, time enough for life. What's time enough for life? What does that even mean? I know it will be different for every single one of us, and some people listening, some of us here have got passion projects, and Erika said it right at the opening. We haven't got the faintest Scooby that we're even going to make it into our beds tonight, let alone that we're going to have wisely spent our time on that passion project.
This is so interesting that it's really amazing what you can learn when you just keep your mouth shut, actually. Listen to what everybody is saying. That's a side note. But the idea of time as a resource, right? Like we're not brought up and taught to look at time as a resource. It is the best resource that we have, right? It's a commodity. It's the only resource we have that doesn't have a price tag attached to it. But if not used mindfully and intentionally and thoughtfully, it can cost everything, right? It has no price tag attached to it, but it is the most expensive thing to lose. Like Alec, you said, you wouldn't walk around, shelling out money everywhere just willy-nilly, but we give our time away to people, to things, to ourselves, wasting time, right, in our heads, possibly. But if you aren't mindful about what you're doing and intentional, like you guys are saying, it costs everything. It costs you connection. It costs you success. It costs your health. It can cost everything. it's really interesting to think about time as a resource. Never looked at it that way, right? It was always like, I got time. Yeah. And Marcelo, right? I live with a 21-year-old. He thinks he's got all the time in the world. So when I'm saying, you're running out of time, he's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, oh, you are, you really just are, though. But he doesn't want to understand. There's something, it's almost like you wish it was shifted, right? That when you're younger, you have the idea that I don't have all the time in the world, so that you make better choices and better decisions. And when you're older, you're more like, it's okay, everything is good. So there's something backwards in the way that that works, but that's why we have these conversations, to raise awareness, right? So somebody out there is listening to this, hopefully, and maybe it will make a shift in them to realize, use your time wisely. And that doesn't mean having to be productive, right? Like we had this conversation somewhere the other day. It doesn't mean having to be busy doing, using your time wisely. It just means, who are you connecting with today? You know, maybe you shut down your phone or shut the TV for a little bit longer so you can have a conversation with someone who wants your time, right?
It's that other lyric, you know, to unfold all the precious things. And I'm thinking of your son. In fact, I'm kind of relating it to me as a 21-year-old. To have lain a little longer on the sandy beach with someone that I was in that juvenile love kind of understanding. It's like, it's the only one. It's the only one I'm ever going to have. She is the most amazing. To linger in all of these precious moments and actually know that they are that precious and beautiful, because you know, when we reach the end, and if we really do see our entire lives flash before us, I know which bits my gaze would want to linger on. And it's not these long empty stretches where I was committed to a career path or any of those kind of things. It's the last time my son willingly took my hand or asked me to sing him a bedtime song. It's the last gaze into a lover's eyes before we said goodbye. None of that other productive crap.
You know, sorry, Gabby, I saw that you unmuted before I jumped in. It's not lost on me that there's a giant paradox here, for me anyway. It's like we have the one side that we're talking about we don't know how much we have, so be intentional about how you're using it. Wait, stay a little longer, talk a little longer, or gaze at the moon a little longer, whatever it is that you want to do to like live in the moment. But then the total paradox for me anyway is, but there's no time like now to do the things that you want to be doing, right? So act, do something, do it. Don't put it off to tomorrow. You have people who are like, well, when we have more money, we'll start a family. Or when I retire, I'm going to live my life. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. So it's like the paradox of slow down, but don't slow down too long. Like you actually have to live your life while you're being intentional in the slowdown process.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I'm not sure it's a paradox. It's probably that point, are we living meaningfully, right? If we really want to travel and explore other countries and get certain experiences, and we don't do it, we put it off because we think we have to stay in a really high-paying job where I have to work 70 hours a week so I can afford my big 5-bedroom house. Then it becomes a question of reevaluating what's really important to me. How do I want to live my life? And how do I want to spend my time? Do I really want to spend it in that job so I have a 5-bedroom house? Or can I actually maybe do with a 2-bedroom house and go traveling and work less? So sometimes we get into this rut and, where we think we should do that, but we don't. We actually don't. It's just a matter of reshuffling and actually becoming aware of what we really want. And I think there's this beautiful statistics where they ask people on their deathbed about regrets. And nobody ever said, I regret not having a bigger car or a bigger house. The regrets were usually related to our dearest and to our relationships we have. It's usually
Mhm.
regrets. I wish I would have spent more time with my kids and wouldn't work too hard when they were young. It's usually things like this. So that's where the width and the depth of it comes, I think, how we spend our time and the meaning we put to it.
Do you know, I wish he was here, but hopefully he'll listen. And I'm going to give a massive shout to Brett, our dear friend Brett Corcoran, because he taught me something while he was here in October last year, which is absolutely prime to this. He doesn't even know that he taught me this. So listen up, Brett. We caught the train to London, and to my mind, that was an hour and a bit on the train, and it was just travel time. I knew I was going to talk to my friends. It was great. Brett engaged in other people's lives. He spoke to people. He made that train journey into something else more significant than just jumping on the train and going to London. And it has sat with me since that there's so much more to get out of life. You know, that quote about sucking the marrow out of life and not reaching the end, not having lived. So I salute you, Mr. Corcoran. That was a real big learning point for me. Thank you.
It's so funny because knowing Brett, living a life with Brett, he's like that all the time. And for someone like me, it's not as, it doesn't come as easily. It's just not even like you, Alec. It doesn't even come to my mind to be that actively engaged, starting the engagement, because he does that. So it's funny to be in the presence of someone, right? Because it looks like, whoa, what are you doing? But then you realize, wow, he's really just living life, and like getting to know, and connection is like the ultimate thing. So I'm sure he'll be happy to hear that.
Joe, I think I would like to leave that comment of mine as my closing thought. I don't know what any of you would like to leave our viewers and listeners with.
I would just like to say that I am going to walk away from this conversation with one foot in each side of the conversation, right? Like, don't put off today till tomorrow what you can do today, right? Like, if you have dreams, if you have goals, if you have things that you want, like, no time like the present, because we don't know how long we have. But also, for someone like me, it's really probably more important to remember to just be here now, and to stay invested in what's going on in my life right now, and live as fully as possible. I mean, there's no surprise to me that one of my favorite people is Henry David Thoreau, right? And this is like an old concept. He's going back. We're going back. He went into the woods to live deliberately, so that he didn't get to the end of his life to realize that he never even lived at all. And that is a really bad paraphrase of what he said, but the sentiment rings true for me. So that is what I am taking away from today.
Think what I'm taking away is stay connected to what you really want. And I think it was Gabby that mentioned, when you come to the end of your life, and I think you mentioned it, Alec, too, the dash. What did you do? And a lot of times we get distracted with what is expected of us instead of what do I really want? What is going to feed my soul? And so my takeaway is get connected to who you are and feed your soul, and do the things that's going to make you happy and satisfied so that when you do get to the end of the road, you won't have regrets, or you won't have as many regrets.
That was beautiful. I don't think there's much I can actually think of to add to that, Marcella. So for me, the important point is to do exactly that and to reevaluate all the time what I'm doing, because things change and sometimes we miss the point when they have changed, and we keep doing what we're doing for years without realizing, hold on, this is not really anymore what I want. This needs to change. So I think that's my takeaway, reevaluating all the time what I'm
Yes.
actually doing and how I spend my time and what my intentions are.
Thank you all. That wraps up episode number 29. I hope that you all, viewers, listeners, and chatters, got something from it. And we will see you again shortly for episode 30. All our participants' contact details will be in the description. See ya.